move to this now. President Cyril Ramaphosa says his government is working hard to bring people implicated in corruption to book. He says during his tenure, he's been focusing on prosecuting those responsible for state capture. Ramaphosa says that state institutions such as the South African Police Service, the NPA, Eskom, PRASA, and the South African Revenue Service are in the process of being fixed once and for all. He also expressed his support for Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter and the group's new board. For more on this, we are joined by political commentator Solly Moeng. Dr. Moeng, a pleasure to have you on the program this evening. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has become a heroic figure, lauded for his willingness to fight corruption. But he recently has found himself at the center of a storm over the Phala Phala matter. Are you even convinced by his remarks about tackling graft?
I'm sorry. Good evening to your listeners out there. Look, first of all, it shouldn't be up to the President of the Republic to tackle graft. At least not on behalf of the criminal justice system. He should fire people that he can fire, and he should speak out a bit. He should have been able to speak out a bit more against corruption since he became president, and he hasn't. That's why a lot of people refer to him as a weak president with no backbone. And what the president should be doing is not arrest or prosecute people for crime. There should be an independent criminal justice system that acts without fear, favor, or prejudice, irrespective of whether that person is close to the president or not. That's what South Africa should be seeing. Not a president who tackles corruption, but a president who doesn't tolerate it in his government.
When you listen to supporters of President Cyril Ramaphosa, they say he's become a victim of political persecution over the Phala Phala matter. What's your take on this?
Yeah, of course he is. He has become a victim of political persecution. The thing is, the Phala Phala matter can be viewed from either a political perspective, and the ANC is choosing to handle it from a political perspective for all the reasons that we know. It's very opportunistic, but it must also be viewed from a legalistic perspective. We haven't seen what the Reserve Bank has to say about this. We haven't seen what SARS has to say about this. Ramaphosa has been playing hide and seek with instead of responding directly to questions from the time this thing started. So he can't just push everybody to look at this from the ANC's perspective, which is just political. He should answer the questions that he's been refusing to answer all this time. He gave to his political enemies stuff to use against him, and he has to own up. He has to own up.
Now, we are a few days away from the 55th National Conference of the ANC. It is going to be a long, thorny road. However, a few days will feel like months for President Cyril Ramaphosa, who received the most branch nominations to lead the ANC for a second term now. As we edge closer to that conference, what, in your view, will be Ramaphosa's biggest test here?
Well, look, Ramaphosa has managed to some extent, or maybe to a respectable extent, to consolidate his power within the ANC. He is the president. He has access to resources and to positions. Obviously, we know how it works in the ANC. The person with the most money, with the most access to or ability to offer you a job here, to make you an ambassador of South Africa or this other position, is the one who holds the power. So people don't really care about individuals. They care about the person with the power. So he will, I think, I don't see why he will not be elected in the ANC structures, the next president of the ANC, and he'll stay the next president of South Africa. But the thing is with South Africans is that they must not entrap themselves into looking at South Africa from the perspective of the African National Congress, because the Ramaphosa is just a friendly face, a charming face of the ANC. Within the ANC, you have all these people who should never be in public office. You look at the NEC, some of the people who have been nominated, hopefully most of them will, especially those implicated in state capture and other forms of criminality, will not make it. But Ramaphosa is not the ANC. He's just a deployee of the ANC, and that is a problem. So the ANC that is deploying him to the presidency of the Republic is going to stay with him, whether it's him or Mabuza or Mkhize or somebody else winning the presidency. South Africa still has to deal with the ANC, and the ANC, it doesn't matter whether it's Ramaphosa or somebody else who has the ANC.
Now, at the heart of, these long days, or should I say sleepless nights for President Ramaphosa, is this damning Section 89 parliamentary report on the Phala Phala farm scandal. Now, the scandal relates to the failure of President Ramaphosa to report that 2020 crime involving foreign currency at his farm in Limpopo. As a result, the independent panel also found that the president might have violated his oath of office. Now, this is quite serious, finding that that can actually lead to his impeachment.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why I'm saying the ANC would love everybody to look at this from a political perspective only, but we have to consider those legalists. Did he commit a crime? If you or me had done exactly what Ramaphosa has done, would we still be studying or would be in prison? We would be in prison. Can I bring into South Africa tens and tens of millions of dollars of money in foreign currency without facing persecution, without declaring this money through to customs? No, you can't. So you can't have a country where the laws are good for everybody else, not for everybody. It's almost like an Orwellian animal farm. So Ramaphosa has got to be accountable to the same criminal justice system that his comrades have to be. If he's proven to have done nothing wrong, that's fine. But he must go to the system through everybody. He can't force everybody else to look at this as himself being persecuted by his enemies in politics. Of course they're doing it. Of course other presidents didn't do this out of love for South Africa. He did it. We know that he's very close to Zuma and all those dodgy people around Zuma.
However, I mean, it should have come as no surprise that the decision that the ANC National Executive Committee took would be rather to give its full support to President Ramaphosa and instruct its members in Parliament to vote against any parliamentary report or impeachment proceedings. Now, this is not the first time, nor is it the last time that the ANC decides to protect its leaders. The party has not been remarkably sophisticated about such matters, hence the ease of even predicting the outcomes of the meetings of its national structures about scandals relating to leaders. In what should be in the public knowledge is that the views of this dominant faction often prevail. Give us your analysis over what to expect at this conference.
Well, look, the people who are going to come, the Tony Yengenis and the Mahashules and all these other, the previous chairperson of the ANC Women's League and all these other people who are aligned around Zuma, of course will come, they'll make a noise, they'll tell Ramaphosa, like they're trying to tell us, that he's not different from Zuma. But of course, the truth is Ramaphosa is not being accused of having stolen public money to build a sprawling, rural house or homestead. He is being accused of breaking laws, but not in the same way that Zuma gave South Africa on a platter to the Guptas and to other people. So Ramaphosa is not being accused of that. He should have, but he still broke the law. He doesn't make it a better, breaking of the law. So the people around Ramaphosa, of course, will stand up and defend him. And some of us who are cynical say, of course, they know that if Ramaphosa goes away, they're going to stop eating. Those people who ate before will come back to eat again. So it's all about the ANC. It's not about South Africa. I think that's the key thing. The key thing is that the ANC will continue playing its game and South Africa will continue being held hostage by the battles within the African National Congress, which has nothing to do with South Africa. Ramaphosa said it himself. We must never forget this. He said, I would rather be seen as a weak president of South Africa rather than rather than have the ANC split under me. The ANC, even all other leaders of the ANC have stood up and said, the ANC is more important than South Africa. South Africa needs to unshackle itself from the ANC, otherwise this is going to keep happening.
On another matter, I mean, you listen to remarks made by the president. He said that there was no time frame for when load shedding would end. He's also backed the leadership of Eskom. I mean, this comes as Eskom implemented stage 5 load shedding today. Let's speak about his administration's handling of the power crisis here.
Well, it's terrible. Look, Ramaphosa was given the responsibility by his former boss, Zuma, to handle Eskom and other SOEs. We know that he made promises. They're all over social media and digital space. He failed in those promises. He has not handled this thing. And I think there was a time when a lot of time was wasted between Ramaphosa's view of what should happen and Gwede Mantashe's view of what should happen. And that's a pity also because this is the president whose ministers have this is the first time since the advent of our democracy, in fact, when ministers in a cabinet basically disagree with the president and they do their own thing. Look at Sisulu, look at NDZ, look at Mantashe. Ramaphosa would say something, somebody else would stand up and say something else. Even during COVID, the long COVID, you remember Ramaphosa would say something else and somebody else would come up and say something else. NDZ would come up and say something totally contrary. So he has not been respected by his own people, and that is a sad thing about it.
That was a political commentator, Solly Moeng, giving us his thoughts about remarks made by President Cyril Ramaphosa, also saying that his government is working hard to bring people implicated in corruption to book. Now, he also said during his remarks that during his tenure, he's been focusing on prosecuting those responsible for state capture.